Hi besties, today I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful two-piece top and pant, and I'll be starting off with this half scale shoulder to waist pattern because it's a crop top. And first of all, I'll be tightening my under bust. So on my under bust line, I'll take out 0.5 each on the two sides of my dart, and I'll connect that back to my waistline. Then with my armhole curve or any other curve you have, you connect that 0.5 mark towards the bust line. The next thing to do is to extend this line that runs from your waist to your bust line. You extend it up to your shoulder line. Then you go ahead to measure how deep you want your neckline to be. Then with your curved ruler, you connect that to your armhole line like so. Then the next thing to do is to tighten our top around the neckline. Now go ahead to mark 0.5 on both sides of the dart line. Then you connect that back to your bust line. Then I'll close in that dart. And I'm doing this because one of the lines will obviously be longer than the other one, and in order to match this, I'll close the dart and redraw my neckline. When you open your neckline after redrawing it, you'll notice that little extension that's been created. And we are basically done with our front pattern. What we'll do now is to cut out the parts that we would need. And if your pattern has a bust dart, you go on to close in permanently your bust dart. For the back pattern, you go ahead to connect with a curved ruler from your armhole line down to however long or however deep you want your neckline to be at the back. It's just as simple as that. So you can go ahead to measure first of all. When you determine how deep you want it, then you can use your curved ruler to shape. We also need to tighten the back, so you can go ahead to put in your nipple to nipple measurement to divide your pattern into two, and that is what I am doing here. When you have determined this, you make a straight line so that we can tighten on this line. So after drawing your line, you make a 0.5 mark on both sides of this line, and you connect that back to your waistline like so. After doing this, you go ahead to fold your dart, or you close your dart. And with your curved ruler, you retrace your back neckline. You should have something like this at this point, and then you've been able to successfully tighten your back. Then I'll extend my back neckline to my zip allowance. Then I'll cut it out. Yeah, so you have one piece for your back and two pieces for your front. Then to determine how long the strap is going to be, you will need the upper part of your patterns you cut out for both the front and back. You will fold in the sewing allowance of your back pattern. Then after doing this, you match the front and the back pattern at the shoulder line. Then you can go ahead to measure from your front to the back and determine how long your strap is going to be. Yeah, mine is about 14.25. And with this, we are done with the front pattern. For the pants, I'll be using this pattern I already have. And on the side of the pattern, I'll mark downwards 2 inches. And at the center front, I'll mark downwards 4.5 inches. And on that 4.5 inches mark, I'll go in by 1 inch. Then with my ruler, I'll connect that 1 inch mark back to the center front, like so. Then I'll connect that 1 inch also to the 2 inch we marked earlier on the side. Depending on your size, you can make this a little shorter or longer than the dimensions I use. For me, I even went ahead to go in by 0.5. So this line will be, I made it 4 inch instead of 4.5. Then I redrew the line. So you can totally adjust this to fit your size or your taste. Then you can trace that on a fresh pattern paper or cut it out completely. Now we'll move on to the big rows you have in the front of the top. We need to first of all cut a circle piece. I'm using 3 by 3 inches here. You can use 6 by 6 so that you have a big enough piece to work with. Then you can trim out the excess if need be. So just observe what I am doing. You fold your fabric like you want to cut a circle skirt. I'm using 3 by 3 inches. Like I said, you can use 6 by 6. So I'll mark 3 by 3 inches round so that I can have a full circle piece. Then I'll cut that out. Sorry you can't see that clearly, but I'm sure you understand what I am trying to do. After you cut it out, you should have something like this. So your own piece should be bigger. Then I'll cut long strip of fabric about 5 inches to 6 inches wide, so that when you fold the fabric, you have 2.5 or 3 inches on both sides of the fabric. When you are sewing this strip, the two ends of your fabric should take a similar shape like what I am marking. So you make a curve like that, then before you run your straight line. So you should have something like this. This will help your roses to sit nicely at the ends. I'll go ahead to make the same mark on the second end of the strip. You might need up to 120 inches long strip or even more depending on how big you want your rose design to be. Then I'll take this to my sewing machine to sew. What I'm doing first of all is to join my strips together. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm joining two long strip of fabric together so that I can have a really long strip to work with. Then I'll open up the fabric after joining the ends together, and then I'll fold into two halves so that I can begin my joining. Remember, the ends of the strip, you are going to sew them in a curved form like you will see me do here. Yeah, just follow what I'm doing. Yes, so at the end you should have something like this. Yeah, then you cut out the excess. At this point, we need to change our sewing foot to this gather's foot because we would need to gather the strips we just finished sewing, and that is what you will see me do here. When you are done sewing, you should have your fabric bunched up around this end. Moving on to sewing the roses proper, I will take this circular piece we cut earlier and find the mid point, and this is so that I can start sewing from the middle of the piece. Before we start sewing on the roses, I want to kind of demonstrate what sewing style we are going to be using. So I'm assuming this is your fabric. You go ahead to find the midpoint like I did earlier. After marking your middle point, you open it up. What you then do next is to sew on your strip on the circle fabric like about 1 inch, and afterwards you turn around and sew very close to that initial 1 inch mark like so. Then begin to sew on a circular form. You sew round and round and round like that until you get to the very end of your fabric and you end it somewhere there. And that's just basically the process. So I'll be demonstrating what I just explained right here with my strip and my circle fabric piece. So I'm running like 1 inch already. Then I'll turn my fabric and strip like so. Then I'll sew another line. Ensure that the two raw edges meet or slightly overlap. That way the midpoint of your rose will be neat and you won't have to see the raw edges. And from this point you have to sew layer by layer until you get to the very end of your strip. The trick really is to take your time. There is a lot of arranging you need to basically do, so take as much time as you need. I discovered that I lost a part of the remaining video, and that is why I'm using a totally different fabric. So after you are done sewing like the first initial step, that one you do not have to care about arranging so much. You only need the raw edges to meet so that the midpoint will be neat. When you start sewing on the second step, you need to try to arrange your fabric to be as flat as possible. If you can see what I am doing very well, you notice that I'm trying to lay my fabric as flat as possible. And in doing that, you might need to take small pleats around the side of the fabric you are sewing. If you pay close attention, you will see me taking little pleats so that the fabric can be as flat as possible. So I'll keep repeating that process till I get to the very end. I try to lay as flat as possible and make tiny little pleats around the area I am sewing. Yeah, that's basically the process of sewing these rows. I'll leave the video to play for a few seconds so that you can watch how I am sewing and arranging the fabric. If you have watched this video this far, thank you so much for staying with me. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please kindly hit the subscribe button. Remember to also like, share and drop your comments and questions in the chat box. I'll be waiting to respond to all of them. Thank you all. When When you are done sewing your rows, you go ahead to cut off excess fabric if you do have. Also trim off hanging threads, and yes, that will be your rows, and we are basically done with this video. Thank you guys for staying tuned with me. See you all in my next video.